There he is.
You got him? Yep, there he is. Hey, Rick. Well, is Rick here? You want to make a motion? We start the meeting?
Make the motion.
All right, I'll second that. All in favor?
Favor.
Okay. Statement I'd like to read is this is an open meeting being broadcast live and recorded by WRPS for playback at WRPSRockland.com. Public access on YouTube. The participants of tonight's meeting will be myself, Chuck Hession, Dan DuRoss, Chair, Dave Taylor, Interim Superintendent, Ed McAuliffe from Suez, Rick Hatouche from Suez, and Robin Day, the Administrative Assistant. First item of business would be to elect a new chair.
I make a motion with Chuck.
Well, I'd like to second that. So all in favor? Aye.
Right.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the next meeting. The previous meeting, excuse me. That would be the minutes of 3/9, 3/18, and 3/25. Dan, did you get a copy?
I saw it, yes.
You want to approve them or you need
Make
more
a,
time?
approve them,
Okay,
approve them.
thank you. With that, long time coming, I'd like to make an announcement of our new superintendent and make a motion that we hire Keith Natasia for the superintendent position. Do I have a second, Dan?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
With that, I'd like to introduce Keith. Keith, the floor is yours. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself? You're on mute, Keith. Keith, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. just
Okay,
on-
there you go.
Sorry. Yeah, no, looking forward to, phenomenal opportunity. So I've been around infrastructure for over 25 years of my working career and want to put all my knowledge and my abilities to good use.
Wait a minute, a few words.
I'll save them for when I start.
Okay. Well, okay, Keith, I'm going to do what I can to get you a lot of the information you requested.
Sure.
What we could do is get together, phone call tomorrow night, and I'll tell you what I have and what we could send you. And if you need any more to fill in the blanks, just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'd like to move to item 4, the comprehensive study and update and release of the Wright Pierce final report. I received the final executive summary today for release. There have been no changes to it. The only change we had on it, we left the subject of the discussion of the digesters open. The details of the digested phase really belongs in the design phase of the project, but Suez, rightfully so, had some concerns on that and wanted to voice them. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that this is a Wright Pierce report. This is their suggestions and recommendations. Again, something in the nature of the digester, and I'll let Rick and Ed bring you up to speed on that at their portion of the show tonight. But that is in a design phase, which we are at least 3 years away. The next stage of this project would be a comprehensive wastewater management plan. We have got to get a quote on that and get that out to bid, and that's probably going to take a year, and that's going to be the real cornerstone of the whole upgrade. But one thing I want to address to the residents that are watching, and you have to realize that this upgrade is going to focus on the mechanical, electrical, HVAC equipment at the facility itself. The $50 million price tag that we quoted refers to just strictly that. The plant up in the end of Concord Street and Summer Street. It does not take into consideration the 13 substations or the pipelines leading to. They will be addressed in a portion of the CWMP, but we really had to focus on the plant itself. Now, with that said, I think everyone needs to be aware of that. Once we upgrade the plant, Again, it's an upgrade in the mechanical. It's not going to increase our capacity. We are limited in capacity by our permit, which is 2.5 million gallons a day. And we're also limited to the factor of that's what frontage stream. I think it's an impact, considered a impacted waterway, is all we can discharge to that. And the chances of the EPA or the North River Watershed Group increasing our capacity to dump there, to discharge, dump is a bad word, to discharge into French's Stream are slim to none. So to gain capacity, what we're going to have to do is aggressively go after the I&I, the inflow and infiltration. And we'll go into that again a little bit more. But that's really the only way we're going to, at this point, gain additional capacity at the plant. I'll go into a discussion of the inflow and infiltration so you have a better handle on that later on. And Keith, again, I want to bring you up to speed on that report, and I'll be, delivering as much of that information that I have to you.
Okay.
With that, we might as well jump to the schedule for the public meeting of the release. Not the chief engineer, but the engineer who really did the bulk of the work for this comprehensive study, his name is Doug Hankins, and he is going to tackle climbing Mount Denali for the month of May. If he gets eaten by a grizzly, we have a standby. So what I'm looking at is we will be receiving the final study for the final copy next week for internal digestion and question and answers. So I'm probably looking at a June meeting I'm shooting for Thursday the 17th, have a public hearing where Doug can present the report and take some limited questions and answers. When I say limited, I don't want to get dragged out into long-term prognoses for capacity. Again, this was a study on what is our facility, the shape it's in now. Some of you have tuned in previously, you know that Rick from Suez, our project manager, has said some of this equipment is so old, we cannot even get spare parts any longer. So that was the crux to that report. And I think personally, they've done a great job. It was, to summarize, we had 5 companies bid on the scope of work. It narrowed down to 3 bidders, and Wright Pierce won at fair and square, and they nailed the scope of work right to the T. They've worked quite a bit with Suez. We've gave them every bit of documentation that we could get our hands on, going back as far as 2005. So they've had a chance to look at that. I don't know, Rick, if you want at this point, bring up to speed what you spoke about on the digester, or you want to wait?
Well, I'll just wait till Ed and I, it's our turn, Chuck, and we
Okay.
can discuss it further.
Okay, but that's where that report lies now. It is finalized. Internal discussion can't change anything. It is what it is. And like I said, it's just an opportunity mostly for Keith to come up to speed with it. And coupled with the fact that Doug is away for a month, will be plenty of time for Keith to get into that and ask his questions. And Keith, there will be people at Wright PS that I'll be giving you their phone number. If you feel free to contact them at any time with any questions you have that
Okay.
we cannot answer.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, Dan, do you want to add anything to that, or do you want to go into number 6? I guess Dan wants to go into number 6. What we have been bantering about for quite a while is different moratorium issues on what we can and what we can't do to help us out here at the facility and answer a lot of questions that not only you as residents have, but developers have and town hall has as well. I'm sure you're all aware of this point of the water moratorium that was placed last Thursday, I believe. And honestly, it took me by surprise, but believe it or not, they're in tougher shape than we are. And what I'd like to do at this point is share my screen with some ideas that I had. And for those of you in the in the public that have questions on it, I want you to understand right now, this is just a proposed moratorium. Nothing's finalized. Dan and I haven't voted on it yet. We haven't really discussed it at length. I need to have discussions with Dan, Suez, Keith, Dave, before we come back with a package that we feel we should be proposing to you. But again, this is my thoughts of where we should kind of be heading with this moratorium. So with that, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me see. Guess it's not going to let me do it. Okay, well, this is a moratorium, like I said, that we're proposing today, and it's only a proposal. One of the things I wanted to go into is everyone's heard of I&I and inflow and infiltration, and there are a lot of different thoughts about it. But when you're dealing with the regulatory agencies, being the Mass DEP and the EPA, you could say, well, I plugged a leaky wall and I used I&I. That to them is not I&I. Inflow and infiltration is the inflow and infiltration of any quantity, any type of water that you can't identify the source that gets into your sewer system. Inflow and infiltration rehab repair is the physical activities you take to repair that defect or those defects. Now, inflow and infiltration are two separate items, and I don't have to read it to you. I'm going to make these slides available to the public tomorrow if they want a copy of them. But inflow is water other than sanitary flow that gets into your sewer system. It could be from your yard, your roof drains, your cellar drains, drains from springs or swampy areas, manhole covers, cross connections, catch basins, you name it. That's what inflow is. Infiltration is water other than sanitary water flow that gets into your system through defective pipes, pipe joints, connections, or manholes. Now, this is how the EPA and DEP define, and when they issue a permit, or when you say you've corrected I&I, this is what they're going to be looking for. Now, the moratorium I'm proposing would take effect June 1st, 2021. And I'd like to hold it for 6 months without any permits being issued. Those permits that we approved previously from January 2020 through the end of this month will remain valid. And I'm looking at as a goal is so we could really get a handle and jumpstart on our comprehensive wastewater management plan, allow the system to really stabilize and get an estimation on our actual I&I. Now, when we lift that, there's going to be some conditions I'd like to see. And again, I want some input on this for permit approval. And what we do is, I don't think we could be flexible. Once we come out with these conditions, we cannot make exceptions for party A and party B. We got one of the biggest things I appreciate is consistency. And I'm sure a lot of people out there are like that. So what I'm going to be shooting for is the sewer department is going to establish an available sewer fund account. And that's going to be for available flow that we feel that we can issue. Now, the full required volume must exist in that fund at the time of your request, which means if you want 2,000 gallons of wastewater permit, that 2,000 gallons has to exist at that time in the sewer fund account. We're going to be going into this further, but I'm going to put a required flow volume cannot exceed 3,300 gallons a day for residential use. And for industrial, business, and commercial, the flow cannot exceed 10,000 gallons a day, or under a condition I'll go into later, 20,000 gallons a day. But that special condition, it means that that party, those businesses, commercial and industrial, will physically have to go out themselves, find the 11-to-1 ratio for I&I removal that the EPA has mandated us. That has to take place, and for other reasons, which I'll go into, later on, we haven't been really doing that, or just hands have been tied. And it's only going to be issued to the applicant if there are no requests for new connections on a waiting list that we'll establish for residents, business, commercial, and industrial. We're not going to we shouldn't consider it a new application for a change of use if if a building has an existing discharge, they could still get a permit, but they're gonna still have to live with the maximum flow requirements we settle. But the key to this moratorium is I would like to see firm on that no connection permits will be issued if the rolling monthly average flow exceeds our 2.5 million gallons a day NIPD's permit for 6 consecutive months prior to the application. Now, I want to give you an example of how that differs. Our monthly average for March was 2.67 million gallons. That was due to a heavy rain, but it is what it is. That's what we discharge, 2.67 million gallons a day. And our permit is 2.5. But our rolling average for us, our 12-month rolling average for that same period is 2.49, 2.5 if you know the cut hairs. Now, the available sewer flow account I'd like to establish will take effect January 1st, 2022. And I'm going to change some of the wording this as we go along because I had some second thoughts. The Rockland Sewer Commissioners, as it would stand right now, I feel could only allocate 50,000 gallons a day for new users. Yes, we are over, but we just can't shut people off cold turkey. Any new permits will come on a first come, first serve basis with that 50,000 gallons. And that includes municipal, residential, business, industrial, and commercial users. Now, what we can do is if we run out of that 50,000 gallons, we'll create a waiting list. And the waiting list will be based on your date of approval for a potential connection, not when your application is submitted. And to go back what I said earlier, I don't feel we should be issuing any permits unless that actual amount exists in our sewer fund flow account there. And no permits are going to be issued or should be issued. To me, it's kind of crazy if we issue a permit, take fees, and say, okay, we're going to correct I&I. Well, unfortunately, some of our I&I money has gone to repairs. We can't help it. We got to keep the facility going. So we're chasing our tails doing this. So unless that permit has that requirement, unless the requirement for permit actually has that flow existing in their funds, it's not going to be issued. We cannot be issuing permits for something we don't have. The permit approval will be with a majority vote of the Rockland Board of Sewer Commissioners. One thing, there'll be no more flow added until that sewer fund account for a couple of reasons. One, we have got to start strictly adhering to our administrative order that was issued to us back in 2006. We submitted a corrective action on February of 2007. And by the regulation, we have to follow that. We haven't been. No, in that corrective action, we told the EPA that we will remove 11 gallons of wastewater for every 1 gallon added to the system, no matter what type of the connection. That is the EPA approved ratio. That's the 11-to-1 that you've heard and bantered about, and that's what we mean by that. For every 1 gallon of wastewater that goes into the sewer system, we are required to remove 1. We were going off looking for it for I&I, but we're going to have to tighten up on that. Now, what that means, say we place 50,000 gallons a day available into that fund account. That means we have to find, repair, and remove 550,000 gallons of I&I from the system. That's the 11-to-1. That's where that comes in. So you can see why that's an important number and how big that is. And that's what we have to shoot for if we're going to continue adding new users. We should have been doing this long ago, but unfortunately, the fees we collected for I&I, a lot of the time, and don't get me wrong, some did go for I&I repair. There's been a lot of work done on I&I, but we've also taken those fees to go for repairs. And you'll see that, including in this town article, there's an article for I&I funds. But if the department has to continue using voter-approved I&I funds for repair, then how can we find I&I and put more water into the available sewer fund? So therefore, when the 50,000 gallons a day is gone, I am proposing that we do not issue any more further permits until we can replenish that amount. Excuse me 1 second here. And what I'd like to see is that a maximum balance of 50,000 gallons a day of available flow exists in that account at any time. That's a manageable amount of money, funds. Adding flow to the account, but not to exceed 50,000 gallons a day, can only happen after the sewer department or the applicant has successfully identified and made the repairs to the appropriate amount of I&I by approved methods. That means they've got to go out and find it by industry-approved methods, which I go into more detail in the text of it, which I didn't put up tonight. When they say approved methods, what they do, they can use smoke testing, dye testing, putting cameras down there. Hopefully Dave will go into it a little more what they do later, because we have one in progress now. But if you go on previous history for our SSES studies, Rockland to date has done 3 studies. We've spent a total of 3 studies since 2006. We've spent $1.5 million and we've found 500,000 gallons of I&I. That's based on the SSES reports. I cannot say that every one of those sources have been removed. If the EPA comes in and does an audit, that we're going to have to present for every time we said we removed I&I, they're going to look at receipts, work orders, and manifests. If we cannot produce them, then guess what? They're not going to say we removed it. What I am going to change is the next bullet here where I said the elected Board of Sewer Commissioners vote unanimously. I'm taking that out. It's got to be a majority vote. Everyone should have, and we shouldn't tie anyone up. It's going to be a majority and that's what I'm proposing. You guys may want to change it down the road. But the commissioners have to vote by majority to put flow back into the AFCA SA. But again, not to exceed that 50,000 gallon max. Number one, we just don't have the capacity to do any more. And what I'm proposing is that we'll review that available sewer flow account twice a year at our April meeting and September meetings. But the key to this whole thing will be that no flow is going to be released into that if at any time within a 6-month period, our rolling monthly average exceeds the 2.5 million gallons NIPD's permit. That's breaking the law. And again, I want to go back. When it rains, we're going to break it. So new connection permits. Any new connection to the Rockland system will be issued for a specific wastewater flow amount. If you come to us with a house and you need 500 gallons, I'm just shooting numbers off my head, that's what your permit will be. And there's going to be no guarantee that you'll get additional if you want to put on and make your house a huge apartment building. Municipal connections in effective January 22nd, what I'd like to propose, and again, this is just coming from me. I mean, no, my opinion only, that municipal connections are going to be exempt from that account. However, what I'd like to see is the department making the request for the connection to the sewer system has to submit an article to town meeting on their own for approval to cover the costs associated with an SSES study to identify, repair, and remove their required amount of I&I, and they are no different than any other user. They have to comply with the 11:1 ratio. I checked that out. The reason I'm putting this in is if it comes to the sewer, and I'm going to use the school department as an example. Say they want to put on a new school, and we give them a permit, and we said, okay, we'll get the I&I. We might use the I&I again for repairs. This way here, it guarantees that we're going to find that right, that they have to find that I&I. And again, this could be overruled by the EPA or legally, I don't know. But I want to discuss this stuff. Residential connections. Now this is going to be tough and it was a long time coming, but we have to face reality. Effective January 1st of next year, all new connections to the sewer system for residential single-family homes, apartments, and condos are gonna be subject to the availability of flow that exists in that available sewer fund account, without exception. If available, new resident connections are gonna be limited to a maximum of 10 individual single-family units, a maximum of 10 total apartments or condominiums, a maximum of 30 bedrooms. Now, when I say why bedrooms come into effect or into play under Title V, they multiply the number of bedrooms times 110 gallons, which gives you your allotted flow rate. And we're going to say a maximum number of 3,300 gallons a day for total wastewater flow for residential units. However, I think for a multi-unit apartment or condo that has laundry sites and facilities on hand for many users, we should boot that to 3,500 gallons a day, total wastewater use. That's for residential. For the business, commercial, and industrial connections, we need business tie-ins for our revenue. I don't want to discourage them, but they have to be realistic like we do. So effective January 1st of the new year, all new connections to the Rockland sewer system for business, commercial, or industrial use are subject to availability of flow that exists in the available flows. I don't know if I get that right or what, but anyway, at the time of application, and that's got to be without exception. We cannot make exception to it. Now, if available, there'll be a not to exceed maximum of 10,000 gallons a day. Total wastewater will be permitted. However, if they want additional flow, not to exceed 20,000 gallons a day, we'll do so under special conditions. Now, the additional flow requirements I'd put on for business, or I'd like to, and I keep saying me, but again, this is a joint effort here. Dan, you're going to voice, you have to speak your mind. Rick, Ed, Dave, you too, and so does Keith. They can apply for a sewer system evaluation study permit, we'll call it. We may call it something else, who knows? But it'll be valid from 1 year from the date we approve that permit. And the applicant, under his own cost, with no liabilities to Rockland, they assume all risks, everything, insurance, the whole 9 yards. If they want, they can apply for that permit, and they on their own have to go out under an approved scope of work by the sewer superintendent, go out, identify the INI, repair it, and remove the amount equal to the amount requested, and only after they satisfy that 11:1 ratio. And it's not to exceed 10,000 gallons additional for a total gallonage permitted for 20,000 gallons a day, maximum flow for business requirements. So as again, as an example, if a business needs 10,000 gallons extra, they need 20,000 gallons, they've got to go out and find on their own, at their own expense, 10,000 gallons a day more. And they've got to do it at their own expense. And they have to find 110,000 gallons to get that 10,000 gallons. And if they can't find it, no permit will be issued until the amount is available and placed in the sewer fund account. If they only could find 5,000 gallons and they want to call it quits, they have to find 50,000 gallons to find that 5,000. That's all they'll get. And right now we have a user's fee of $10 a gallon, $20 a gallon. But what I'd like to write in the sewer use ordinance is for anything they get over 10,000 gallons, they only pay $10 a gallon over the first original 10,000. That covers the treatment. And again, I want to delete the word unanimous out of this last bullet. I'm going to make it a majority vote of the elected board of the Rockland Sewer Commissioners. Let me see here. I think that's it. And I'll go back to these slides if anyone wants them. But what I'm trying to do is I'd like to be realistic on it. How do I get back to the, oh, there it is. All right. Okay, guys, I don't know how to get back to the meeting.
Chuck, if you go to the bottom of your screen and select stop sharing, you should open back up.
Okay, wait a minute. I thought I did stop it. Resume. Oh, no, wait a minute. Can I claim a senior moment here? Did anyone at WRPS help me, or is Eddie? Let's see, where do I go down there?
You can also try hitting alt.
Ah, there you go. I'll tell you that. I just stopped it. Okay, but what I'm trying to get is this has to be a joint effort. I mean, we have to come to the cold hard facts that we have an aging facility. The equipment is barely keeping up with what we have. I've tried my best to explain inflow and infiltration. And again, this upgrade is going to deal with the mechanical, HVAC, electrical aspects of the facility itself. To gain capacity, we have to go after I&I, inflow and infiltration. That is the only way we can take on new users. And the only way we can do that right now is the sewer department can no longer rob Peter to pay Paul. We're going to have to put some of this onus onto the permit applicants. That's all I have to say. And Dan, Rick, Ed, do you want to hold off till later, or do you have any comments on it? Or Rick, I'd be interested in hearing your input on it.
Sure. I mean, you're actually correct, Chuck. It's an old facility. We're approaching 40 years since it was last updated, or upgraded, and the I&I is a major issue in the town of Rockland. We struggle every time it rains. Right now, we had 2.75 inches of rain last week, and as we speak right now, I was looking down at my computer, and our flow right now is 3.4 million gallons coming in right now at 7:30 p.m. So it is a problem. And like Chuck said, we have to start removing the I&I. Once we remove the I&I, the plant, we can get it to, the plant runs excellent at 2.5. Ed is my assistant, and we do some magic down there at times. We can treat higher flows, but the equipment struggles even more. It involves a lot of overtime for my operators, and it's time to like I said to Chuck, it's time to upgrade, and it's time to hit the I&I. If we can hit the I&I, just unfortunate, I think that we got I&I issues and we got an old facility. But I wish we had better news for everyone, but that's really what it is.
No, and I think, and I've said it many times, and I'm not just blowing smoke on them or giving them kudos. What Rick and the guys at done. I've been in the business 45 years, and I think and I guess Keith, you'll say the same thing to me last night. You walk through this facility, and for the shape it's in, it looks immaculate. It looks great. They've done a phenomenal job. But you've got to remember one thing. We were hit in 2006 with an administrative order from the EPA. And I hate going back to this, but it's reality, folks. And that administrative order was for repeated flow violations. And guess what? Since 2006, you looked at the aggregate, we violate 58% of the time. That's unacceptable. And I can tell you from conversations I've had with the EPA recently, unfortunately, it looks like that's going to be upgraded to a consent order. My hope is that it's a consent order without fines. But they are going to be looking at us, and they have to. It's nothing we've done. Yeah, we violate a permit. I shouldn't say that, but they have to look at us anyway, even if we were right on the money, because we have that open administrative order. When your new permit comes up, and I guess it's going to be issued, we've been saying this for years, but it is coming up. We were on their radar anyway. Once you have an administrative order, compliance under regulation has to look at that. And they're not happy with what they see. But again, and like I said to them, and it's a fair statement, we are not the only ones in this world that have this problem. You look at like Rockland's facility. Rockland's facility was built in 1962. It was way before the Clean Water Act and Clean Air Act. And that's when they started putting in some regulations. Well, since then, everyone knows you can't even throw a piece of plastic out now. Those regulations have changed, times have changed, and those limits are getting tighter. The one limit that Rick, Ed, and I are terrified of is that we have a phosphorus limit of 1. I think it's going down to 0.5, and that's a tough nut to manage. But we are not alone. Every single wastewater plant in the United States is under the same thing. Ours is just a double whammy. We got a real old plant and an aging infrastructure with a bad I&I, and we've got to bite the bullet and go after it. Ed, you want to add 2 cents? Dave? Keith?
No, no, I don't want to be callous and say it is what it is, but if the capacity is not there, developers going to have to start helping out. I mean, that's what I&I is all about. That you want to develop in the town, you got to start removing so the plant can accept your flows. So I agree with everything you're saying.
But what I want to get at is I want to temper that with the developers helping out. Yes, the developers have to help out, but if you were to use a phrase, they're going to belly up to the bar before they get the permit. If they want 20,000 gallons of discharge, show me you'll find it in good faith. We don't have the time or the money to go after it. They're going to have to find it beforehand and assume the risk to do so. That, again, that is my opinion. I'll leave it up to you guys to change my mind, and I'll vote beyond it. But that's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, promises are cheap. I want to see it. Don't tell me you'll revert. You'll find it down the road after you connect and go, oops, because you're going to forget about it. You're going to find it beforehand. Well, with that, Dave, show's yours. Dave Taylor?
Yeah, so I have the first thing I know you wanted to touch base on, Chuck, was the SSES study. So we're a little bit about halfway through that right now. They just finished up the flow isolation where they put the weirs in the manholes and generate some data. So that was done a couple weeks ago. Ton of I&I, it was done between the hours of 11 and 4 to 4 in the morning. We would go out. I had a couple of guys from the plant go out for the first few hours. I would follow up in the mornings and do the paperwork with the National Water Main. So, just from those 5 weeks of work, it was a ton of I&I that we found out there. Some of it is simple as a manhole leaking profusely, and in some of them, you have services going into the main lines. And so ton of groundwater infiltration. So it had to be done. It wasn't something we could push off and wait for a new superintendent. It had to be done during high flow of March and April. And so with that being said, they started the camera work this week, started on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. So we've started on some of those bad areas that we found with the flow isolation. So we're starting with those first before we get into the main lines. Again, it's kind of following the way the water flows in this town. It starts up higher. If anybody doesn't know, the drainage in this town starts up in North Union and everything ends up in Hanover. So it crosses over through the pond, across Concord Street, across Summer Street, and ends up over in Hanover. So that's pretty much where a lot we've been finding the high I&I areas as well with the sewer. That's been the areas where a lot of the infiltration has been so far. So they've got about approximately 4 to 5 more weeks of the camera work. So we'll keep going with that. And that's during the day. So they come in at the plant at 7 o'clock. They leave with 2 police details and they go to about 3 o'clock. Today they went till 4. And that's where we're at with that. Any questions on that, or?
Do they have an idea when they'll wrap it up? Or yeah, I know it's tough to say, but
No, we're still got about 4 or 5 weeks. So, I mean, they did about approximately 201,000 linear feet of flow isolation on the 8 to 12 inch pipe in town. So that's, about 80% of the town got done with flow isolation. And the camera work will be following the most of the trunk lines and in the problem areas we found with the flow isolation. So, but, just from the flow isolation, examples would be, they put the weirs in the manhole. I mean, some of the manholes were so bad, they would fill up in, less than 30 seconds. So that's a high volume of infiltration, and that's an easy fix. That's a $3,000, $4,000 fix where you can get, thousands of gallons of infiltration fixed in just one manhole.
Was that impacted much with the heavy rains, or do you
Yeah,
figure that's accurate?
Yeah. So we've been, we're trying to, March wasn't considerably, a lot of rain, but as soon as we get the rains, those flows would go up and a lot of infiltration. And obviously last week we had, approximately 3 inches of rain. So camera work, I mean, we did, take for example, we did Wyman's Field today. And that was high flow, and that was during the middle of the day where typically you don't have flyable. Most of that was groundwater, going into the pipes. So, and that's close to the plant. So that crosses over, over to Linwood Terrace, and then over to Concord, and then right to the plant. So that's just an example of what the plant's getting. So that being said, they have about 4 or 5 weeks of camera work left. So. Questions on that from the board, or?
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's, you all set, Dan? Keith? All right, Dave, keep going.
All right, so the next is Dyer Street. I don't know, is there a representative from Dyer Street here tonight?
I'm here.
Okay, hey, how are you? So just to give an update, I just wanted to, we had Dyer Street in obviously the last meeting. The proposed fee schedule was out there. I think we went over that. I mean, that's it's proposed 16 units. The developmental fees on that would be $7,500 a unit. That gives a total of $120,000. The tie-ins are 100 a unit. That's a total of 1,600 proposed. Number of bedrooms were 43. It's 110 gallons per bedroom per source. Total gallons per day would be 4,730. Remediation
Correct.
fees at $20 a gallon would be 94,600. So,
Well, we had given him tentative approval at the last meeting.
you did.
Correct.
And as of right now, reaching out, I mean, I've been in close contact with Water Department. As of right now, it is still pending water. Right now, water is under full moratorium. And the availability is yet to be seen. So right now, pending for water is still Shingle Mill. And if Shingle Mill goes through, there won't be any available water supply for this proposed development. That's per Joe LaPointe.
Well, I think as far as, Dan, you can put in your 2 cents with, but I think we gave Dwight a tentative approval, and that would be the last approval we should give at this point. But, you and I can discuss that later. We're not voting on any developers or developments tonight anyway.
Chuck, on that too, I know we, if you remember about 4 or 5 months ago, we did do you guys did approve the ordinance on the grinder station on site.
Yeah.
On multiple units. My suggestion would be to do the grinder station on site. One, with the inordinate amount of wipes and effluent that's going into our system, this would eliminate a lot of that.
Oh, Dave, I couldn't agree with you more. You know what? I was worried, and I saw an article in the paper tonight about masks. And the reason I brought that up, I had to use a public facility the other day, and I saw people throwing a mask in the toilet.
Yeah, we've gotten, so, I mean, I was gonna touch base on it later anyways, and there's just a ton of sewer clogs on services right now due to the COVID epidemic. One, your people are flushing down the wipes that say they're flushable, which aren't, they don't break down, and cleaning wipes, masks, we've been finding everything. So I'm just, I'm begging the public, and that's not even what's coming down to the plant right now. So any of these grinder stations on multi-developments, which I proposed, I think it was about 4 or 5 months ago, and the
Yeah.
board agreed on it. And I think this is gonna help the situation, because the amount that the guys are dealing with at the plant for, for all that, and then that's not including the pump stations out in the field that are getting clogged up with it. And as you know, those are getting repaired all the time as well, so. That's just my suggestion. I leave that up to the board, so.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I was gonna ask you, Dave, is, do you think there's a way you could talk to Dave Murphy about maybe running something on WRPS to remind people?
Yeah, I think we have some links going out. I was just kind of waiting for Keith to walk in the door, and he might have some suggestions, but I know we do have out, about the wipes, and I think we're gonna put a little bit more out of it. It's also part of the MS4 permitting, that we put something out even for the sewer, even though the MS4 is, more of the drainage. So, but I think maybe we put that out, and even maybe down the road, my suggestion would be, when you're sending out the billing, maybe you send out some sort of flyer, with the bills, if we could get, water and trash, and maybe they would have something, and maybe we all just chip in and do a flyer on what's going out. So that would that's just another suggestion on that.
No, I agree. That'd be great. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we could follow through on that.
Yeah. So so that, I think you had a motion on the floor for Dyer Street, Chuck, and I don't know if you want to make a motion on the grinder station on that development.
Well,
or how you guys-
I'd like to make a motion on the grinder station, because that was approved earlier. Dan, that was before your time. It really is a good idea.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, then
So is that?
motion carries.
So Chuck, just to make it clear for Mr. McKenzie, so is that the approval of Dyer Street pending the grinder station?
Yes. Because we did tell him that at the last meeting. So I
Alright.
think that's only fair to him.
Correct. My recollection was that on the 25th, when we met, that within a few weeks, we'd be getting a letter. And I guess what we were told by the commission, by the office, was that it was going to be put off until the next meeting.
Okay, I'll tell you what, can you give me till Tuesday morning till I can sit with Dan and Keith? And one way or the other, you'll get that letter. And
No,
wait a minute, we have to make
that's
that a
great.
vote at a public meeting.
No, that's great. Appreciated. So you're saying this project then wouldn't be subject to the moratorium that you may vote on that would start on June 1st?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But we can't take a vote on that unless it's a public meeting. I'll talk to Dan about that later on, about getting that done, but I'll give you a call, or Dave can give you a call. And keep you
Terrific.
updated.
Thank you.
Okay,
And the grinder's no issue. We'd already talked to David about that.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item I had on there, and I know it's been a hot topic, was the brewery. So I think both commissioners, I sent that out to the commissioners and also to guys at Suez in regards to that, where we were with the owner of the proposed brewery, just to bring you up to date on that. I also did reach out to John Stone in Abington. And they also have another microbrewery over there. 10th District also has the same type of system. It's a closed loop system over there. So I just wanted to bring that up, and they have not had any issues with that microbrewery over there at all with that type of system. We're talking with the water department also. The water department is approving it based on the amount of water that they're saying they're using, because right now it is less than what the old building used to use as a gym / gymnastics studio / daycare. So they're saying the water usage, as long as the water usage is below what they used to use, it will be pending approvals. So just wanted to bring you up to date on that. I know I touched base with the proposed owner on that, and I did forward both commissioners that letter I got. So,
All right, David, if you could forward him that email I sent you about information that I'd like to take a look at.
yeah,
I like the idea of a closed loop system, because for the residents out there, a microbrewery, although a great idea, they can really wreak hell on a wastewater system if you're not careful.
Yeah,
One thing I would absolutely insist on is at least from my side, and again, it's a vote, but I'd want a closed loop wastewater system on there.
yeah.
But there are some things I want to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, a couple other updates, just small things on that, just so you're aware. I mean, they would be looking to do about seven barrels per batch. Those are 55 gallons. That's equivalent to 217 gallons of water that would be inflow. They typically do about 3 batches a week. That gives you about between 434 gallons to 651 gallons per week. So
That's strictly water though, right?
strictly water, and they do recycle. What they do is with the closed loop system, they do recycle the water, from what I understand. I mean, honestly, I just started really reading into the brewery aspect of the sewer. It's actually very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I've been touching to Rick and Ed about it, but you can keep going on. There's a lot, obviously, there's a lot of parameters with the breweries, but it is when they say microbrewery, it is a smaller one. It's equivalent to that, the 10th district over in Abington. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. They do want to come in and meet with the sewer commissioner the next meeting. So I will forward that information you're requesting.
Okay, the only thing I'd ask is if they hold off till we settle this moratorium issue. So if you want, schedule them for June.
Okay.
Unless we meet sooner on the moratorium. I'd like to put that to bed one way or the other, but I want to talk with Keith, yourself, Rick, and Ed on that, and Dan.
All right. I will forward that information to the proposed developer of it. The next item I had on the superintendent update with the sewer hookups. So we had quite a few of those over the last few months, residential. So what we've done is we switched it from the old 1 clean out system to 2 clean outs, finding where all the clogs. So what we've done is we've been making residents do a clean out towards the house with the sweep going towards the house. And then we've also been making them do a second clean out further away with the sweep going towards the town's stub. So also what we've been doing is mandating, making people put the small manhole covers on them, sometimes referred to as top hats. So it will cut down on doing the sewer superintendent or somebody from the Suez or from the plant to have to go out and do an as-built read and try to find the clean out. So those manholes would be permanent, brought up to grade. And then it's easy enough to find where the clean outs are. Easy for the resident and easy for a follow-up if there's their problem with their service. So that's just something we've done as of lately, and then hopefully we could, get that mandated as a department and moving forward. A lot of towns have done certain aspects of that. It's been working out so far, and we haven't had any complaints to it. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. General topics. I mean, we've been doing the grease trap inspections in the mornings. Those are Robin usually schedules me a couple a day in the mornings. Those are at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So not to get in the way of my regular duties. Dig safe markouts are continuing. Obviously, people are doing more work to their houses. Not a lot of additions going on. So we've been doing the dig safes. So that actually has to go through the sewer department. That's probably something Keith would want to probably get in play, maybe set up a dig safe account and actually have that go through. Right now, water department calls us when there's a dig safe, and or we get a call from a resident. We're also, I know I talked about it a couple months ago. We also are moving forward with the scanning of the documents for the as-built and then also the road prints that we have at the facility. That's going to be part of our GIS system. The GIS system, just so people know, that's a scanning system on a computer where we can go out, look up, where the linkage is of the sewer and also the drainage system in town. Water also has it for the water gas hazard for the gas, so you can do different layers on it. Right now, that system it has been free, but we have to pay for the updates every year. So we're looking for something that can be uploaded into the cloud that will be permanent for the town. We can add different layers to it. So right now, what's happening is if we need to go look at a clog or an as-built, either myself, Robin, or one of the guys at the plant will print up an as-built, take a picture of it, or we have to go and bring that print out onto the field. So with
Well,
this,
Dave,
Yeah.
Dave, you go with that, Wright Pierce scanned a lot of the, that was just the facility equipment.
that's correct. So a lot of
Yeah,
those,
sorry.
yeah, a lot of the big mapping has been done in the past, so it's gonna it saved us quite a bit of money. But taking order, what happens is there's literally a map on the wall and mapping and as-built in a file. So it's archaic, to say the least. So we wanted to get this going. So this will start, the first process of this is scanning. The next process will be updating the GIS system to the cloud. Once you do the GIS system to the cloud, half of that will be contracted through sewer and half of it will be from the drainage department. So it'll
Now,
be.
who would have to do that, Dave? Would we have to budget it, or you at highway, or how does that work?
It'll be split between sewer and drainage, which is run by a highway.
What about the park department? Wouldn't they want that data?
No, they don't have any need of that. So if they need anything, it will just be a mark out and they would just call sewer for it or us for the drainage or water department for water.
Okay,
So, then once that is uploaded, that'll be our system, forever. We'll just do updates to it. So we won't have to pay to get it updated. So that's in the works. That's over the next few weeks. They'll be out to scan those items. Just to give also another update, I know we had the electrical inspectors out, I think it's a couple weeks ago. Again, they were impressed also with the age of the facility and actually what kind of shape it was in. No real issues that they brought up. We had that junction box that was in the Wright Pierce report, where the cover was off in the ceiling. So they did say that, that should be updated. So what it is just a cutback and some water resistant gel caps put on it. So wasn't anything major that they found. The other thing was, I know they want to get all the outlets in that facility vacuumed out and also do an infrared study. So I know Rick's put out some looking for proposals, and I also have one from MacArthur up and on Union Street, and they'll be submitting. So we should have between 3 and 4 proposals on that. And once we come in, we'll move forward with that. So, but I was surprised, no big issues on that part. So
Did the electrical inspector take note of the fact that water was coming through the conduits in a couple of the panels?
Yeah, just to reiterate, it wasn't a panel, it's a junction box on the ceiling.
Okay.
So what has happened is they pulled the cover of the junction box. That's up, I think, approximately around 15, 20 feet to the ceiling. So what they're saying is just to, bend the electrical caps up, and, if there's any moisture in that, they're looking to extend that junction box down a little further, and then, kind of have a perforated cover. So if any moisture comes in there, it would alleviate the moisture.
Well,
So
there goes my dream of having Ed McCullough a Christmas tree.
Yeah. So that's, kind of where we are with that. And I know we've got bids out for that. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about was was the clogs. And I know we touched base on that. And then the other issue is I did meet the owners of the Monahan rink proposed. That's the hockey rink proposed over on Union Point side, where they want to do the cuts over on the services on Forest Street. So right now, Water has approved that project for the ice rink. They still have not come in for sewer. I told them they'll need to come in for sewer as far as that, and then they're going to give us actually what that entails, like the amount of bathrooms, restaurant if they're going to do it, the seats. So that's under that's under different development fees and remediation fees. So that is something they'll have to come in for on that. So And then I think that's it.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Rick?
Thanks, Dave. Following up with Dave with the electrical inspectors, like he said, I'm in the process right now of getting some quotes for the infrared survey and for the actual cleaning and testing of the MCC buckets at the facility. And we have quite a few of them. This really can't be handled by our electrical contractor. So this is why I'm out getting getting quotes for actual electrical engineers. So I'm hoping by next week, Dave and I and Keith will sit down and we'll select a contractor once I get the final quotes. Let's see what else is going on. Suez boiler. Actually, Chuck's earlier talking about the Wright Pierce. Suez and Ed is my assistant. It's on this call. We've been having very proactive meetings with Wright Pierce regarding the assessment of the facility. And we've come to conclusion that the facility is old and a lot of things, like Chuck said, everything from HVAC to electrical to just all the equipment needs to get replaced. And some of the things came up, and this is when we're not in a design stage yet. We're just discussing, the digesters, whether to keep them, whether to keep them or decommission them. Suez gave our point. Matter of fact, it was Ed, myself, and 2 technicians from Suez, general manager. So we put a lot of effort into this. And again, we're just feeling it out right now. We're very early into the process.
Well, one thing you should stress to them, so people know the digesters are key because of the amount of sludge we generate.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that is
Yeah.
a very costly item.
Yes, it's costly to fix, but if you take them out of service, our sludge would go up by 40%. So that's where we're at right now. We're kind of just trying to figure out what's the best options going forward. But we're still that's like Chuck said earlier, we're 3 years out before we have to really come to a major decision. But it's good to get these things out in front while Wright Pierce is writing the town's report. Speaking of digesters, I think last time we talked about the digester boiler update. Ed, do you want to talk about that? I know we're getting close because Ed's been my man and he's been covering it about replacing the existing digester boiler.
Right, yeah, so I believe it was actually a few months ago where I had given you the update that we were waiting for the final specifications from Hallam. I did receive those this week, so they're actually going to be all set for the town to put out to bid. The only thing I would say to Dave and Chuck and even Keith, if you like, I believe we're going to be having one final meeting with the engineers this week, coming up this next week here, and that'll be just to review the specs before we decide to put them out for bid and to just review the process before we move forward. So as soon as I get a date and time for that meeting, I will send that out to all of you guys as an invite. And as Rick mentioned, with the digesters being such a critical decision moving forward, don't really want to get too deep into the technical end of that right now, but I just want to make sure that it's still critical that we move forward with the boiler upgrade is essentially what I'm trying to say, because we're looking at least 3 years before we do even begin any construction at the facility. And if we do lose the boiler for this digestion process, in the meantime, it's going to create a lot of issues permit wise at the facility. And that's certainly something we want to avoid. So that's all I have on that.
No, I'd go full bore on that.
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, if we were to lose one, the amount that it would cost to bring in a trailer unit and maintain that unit on site for months would be a very high unbudgeted expense the town would not want to incur. So.
Yep, absolutely. So other than that, I think last month I finally got the purchase order for the Hingham Street South backup pump, because right now, like I said before, we don't have one. It's been ordered. Unfortunately, no one's keeping things in inventory, and Ed and I worked on this with the vendor, and we're looking about probably August, September before we see this new pump. But it's been ordered, and hopefully the other 2 pumps will stay running and we won't have any issues. I don't have any.
What about lead times for chemicals? Are you running into problems with that?
No, actually, Suez, we always have these conversations every weekly, sometimes, bi-weekly. Haven't had any issues. Suez has a lot of very good vendors, and they're under contract by the year. So that's one thing aspect of the running the facility I never have to worry about is shortage of chemicals. Because being a large company like we are, we have the ability to kind of bump the smaller guys, you know, and we always have enough chemical on hand. And the only thing, I think that's about it. Personnel issues regarding Suez.
Wait, can I stop you before you get into personnel issues?
Yeah,
How are
absolutely.
you making out with Butternut?
Butternut, Ed and I, he's smiling.
Oh, why are we laughing here?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's unfortunately, I know Dave said there was some money available. The more Ed and I looked into it, it's almost going to be one of these where we're going to have to the town's going to get an article and put this thing out to bid, similar to what we're doing right now with the digester boiler. It's just so involved. It's above, you know, our expertise, let's say. And I don't think we need an engineer because we've been talking to Weston Sampson and they can do it, but the whole project has to be put out. And they actually recommended it to Ed and I that the whole project be put out to bid. And that's
Do you have a narrative on that? Butternut people are, so you know, is a pump station. Do you have a narrative on the on Butternut with the equipment that's in it and everything? What I'd like to do is see this go two ways. One, bring it, you know, repair it, and then compare it to a cost of a total upgrade.
Yep, we can do that. Yep, like I said, we do have a scope of services on it. Right now, just basically repairing it. Well, not even repairing, pulling everything out and replacing it with new pumps.
Okay, but like I said, I would look at it as a complete replacement, and you should, for food for thought down the road, when we get into the CWMP, they're going to be looking at the pump stations.
Right.
So you may want to have a little narrative prepared on each of them.
Right. Just a note on that, we did look into doing a complete overhaul at one of those stations, and the cost to do that as opposed to the conversion is probably going to be about 4 or 5 times the cost. So it is going to be significantly more money to put a whole new like wet well and everything there as opposed to just doing the conversion.
No, I understand that. I just want to see, you know, all the costs that we have on it so we can, you know, make a decision. I just don't want to zero in on one aspect.
Well, that has been part of the problem too, right, Rick, is actually getting costs from these vendors. You know, we've had a lot of vendors that come in and promise that they could do the job, and then when it came down to it, they weren't able to quote it. We've been able to get partial quotes from some vendors and no quotes from other vendors. So this has been the issue that we've really run into here. So that's why we think it's probably best to just put the whole job out for bid and let one contractor come in and just handle the whole scope from, you know, start to finish.
Yeah, I agree.
When I hear go out to bid, what I'm looking at is that we prepare a scope of work and send that out to bid. That's what you're talking, correct?
Yep.
So we get 3 or 4 competitive bids.
Right. And we have, and like I said, we actually have a scope of services on it. It's just trying to get all the bids together. You know, it's like, I think it'd just be better off, like you said, Chuck, put it out as one complete bid. Here's our scope of services. Give us a price.
Okay.
So all I have, personnel issues as far as Suez, nothing to report as of today. Other than that,
You guys still on COVID protocol?
we are. Yeah, well, the plant is by appointment only right now. Suez runs a very tight ship. We have 6 feet. Guys have to wear masks all the time, N95s when we do have to work together. So yeah, it's like I said, doors are locked at the facility. We installed a doorbell, like I said in the past. So, you know, the whole idea behind this COVID is to keep our guys safe. But on the other hand, almost 75% of my team right now has gotten at least their first vaccination. So that's a good thing. And that's all I have.
Real quick, Chuck, before Rick moves on here, I noticed we got a lot more people on this call tonight, which is actually really good. So probably a good time to let you guys know that we've been working with Robin and Gino, I believe, from the town. And beginning in January, we're now updating our monthly operating reports right onto the Town of Rockland website. So if anybody wants to go on and take a look at those, there's a lot of information about what's going on at the plant, a lot of data and statistics regarding flows and, you know, other things like that. So we're going to continue to upload those every month. And then when we do the annual ones in June and July, those will also be uploaded as well. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that.
I like that. Thanks. Thanks, Ed. Well, with that said, I wanted to try some. It may turn out to be a horror show. I'm not sure. I like to first try it on a 15-minute stretch, people, if you just give me that for tonight. That a public forum that after you see or listen to what Dave, Rick, Ed, and I have to say, and Dan, if you've got any input, if you want to briefly voice some concerns on the moratorium that I aired, I'd love to hear that. But one thing I do want to tell you, if we cannot get to, and you guys have a question that you really want answered, don't hesitate to submit it in writing to the sewer department, or if Robin can't handle it, I'll give you my email. I'll set up an email. They can email me, and I guarantee you that Dan and I will take a look at them and get back to you. But with that, hey, Mary, you got anything you want to chirp in on for tonight?
I have something I can tell you in terms of the skate rings. I think it's 2 to 3 skate rings that they're putting in behind Forest Street. And it's a 350-seat restaurant that they're going to want sewerage for.
Yeah, I heard rumblings of that from one of my hearings on the zoning board. So that's going to be an interesting one. Like I said in the beginning, we can only give what we have. Period.
That's right. Would appreciate if you would do up a list of acronyms, because SSES, every time I try to remember what it is, and it's Sewer Systems Evaluation Study, but there's a couple of other ones that I keep forgetting.
All right, I'll tell you what. As I come to these and I write them down, I'll do what I did on the I&I. I'll put a little blip together.
Okay, thank you.
On the website. Some of the acronyms we have, we can't use in public. Anyone else have anything they want to say? Or Pat?
I got something to say.
Who's that?
George Grass.
Are you gonna say who?
George Grass.
Oh, go ahead.
South Dyer Street, 40 South Douglas Street. I'm on the corner of Dyer Street.
Mhm.
I was watching your presentation on residential building, and you said you would allow 10 residents per developer. Dyer Street wants to build 16. How did you get away with building 16 when you just put on your stationery that there was only gonna be 10?
Well, what we aired tonight was a proposed moratorium that has not been bid on, has not been voted on. And in all fairness, before that was even considered, the developers did come before us last month, and their flows at the time, they do not really impact it. They had made their presentation. I think to send them back to the drawing board would be doing a disservice to them and the people of Rockland. I mean, we can only be, I'm trying to be as fair as I possibly can. Well, we are. If an issue that you had with the number of units, in all fairness and honesty, you should have been there to the planning board and zoning.
Oh, I've been listening to all of them. My other question is that stream that goes through that project back there on Dyer Street. Is that the sewer department or is that somebody else?
So would you repeat that, please?
The stream that runs through Dyer Street project,
Uh-huh.
that if it backs up, everybody gets water in their basements. Who's responsible for that? Is that the sewer department or is that somebody else?
The stream would not be a sewer department issue. I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Well, if that stream backs up, we all get water in our basements and our sump pumps pump water into the sewer system. Wouldn't that be your responsibility or somebody else's responsibility?
If your sump pump is working and it's pumping, no.
Well, the issue I have is the engineers for that Dyer Street project, they decided to drive a backhoe back there and knock down some trees. And when they knocked down the trees, they blocked the stream back there. And guess what? We got water in our basements because of it. So they're not respecting the residents around that neighborhood. They blocked the stream with the dead trees that they knocked down because they had to take soil samples. As soon as that stream backed up, or as soon as that tree went down, it backed up the stream. And the only reason why I know that is normally I don't get water. I don't get my sump pump going this time of year because really I haven't had much snow or rain. So once my sump pump started pumping, I said, something's got to be going on with that stream. So I went back there last weekend and you could tell that there was a backhoe back there. and they must have knocked down some trees to take their soil sample, and they blocked the damn stream. They disrespect every single person in this neighborhood because they want to build something that nobody else wants. So they blocked the stream.
If I may,
They should be more considerate to the people that live in this area.
okay, if I may interrupt you for 1 second. Dave Taylor, Dave, would you know who would be responsible for that?
The open drainage comes over to the drainage department, which is linked up to highway. That also would be a conservation issue with the stream.
Well, I just found this last week because my sump pump started pumping, and normally it doesn't pump because we haven't had a really bad winter. So that's why I went and investigated. This was just last week. As soon as I unblocked the blockage, my sump pump stopped a day later. So he's got to show some respect for us in this neighborhood. If he's allowed to build back there, he's got to respect the rest of us that live here, because we've been here for many years. And this guy's only here to build 16 projects, and then he's on to something else. So if he's going to go back there and move stuff around, he's got to respect the neighbors.
Conservation
I go out
Commission.
there every year and I check that stream. Last October, when the stream was totally dry, I spent hours going in there and removing boulders and tree branches that had fallen down. The guy knocked down about 6 trees back there with no respect to what happens when you do that.
With no disrespect, Mr. Grass, that's, Dave told you, it's not a sewer department issue. All I can do is ask you to contact Conservation Commission.
Well, it is your problem that people are they're pumping their sump pumps into the sewer. That's why your flow rate is so damn high. So who do I contact for that?
I would say start with
thing being blocked.
Dave, I would say start with Concom.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come out and take a look at it as well, where it's open drainage. So behind Dyer Street, that stream runs on the backside of South Douglas Street. So
yeah, you'll see some dead trees that were knocked down recently. Because like I said, last October, I walked the whole thing and I removed as much stuff as I could, because I don't want water in my basement. My sump pump keeps up, but it shouldn't have gone off at all this year because we haven't really had much snow.
right.
And that 2 inches of rain, I've never had my pump go off with that little amount. It's usually when we have 3 or 4 days of heavy rain that I got to worry about my sump pump.
George, are you referring to the stream that connects over to Winding Way?
Yes,
Okay,
it goes right under Union Street
right.
and then behind the Dyer Street project.
Yeah, I will take a look at that tomorrow if you want to do a follow-up on it with us over at Highway.
It's going to be tough. There's a lot of prickly bushes back there too.
I know, I've walked it.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Right.
Thank you. Bill, I see your hand up.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, it's Bill Nessimo, 522 Union Street. So at the Conservation Commission, I might have misheard, but I thought he said 80 units and not 36. And it's also business zone, so you might want to rethink that on water,
We're not water.
as in using water. If it's business zone, who says they can't put a brewery in that?
Well, he didn't come to us with a brewery.
Right, I understand that, but if he's building it as business zone and residential, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm
That's
overthinking
a
it.
zoning issue, really. The permit for a sewer connection would be
He's gonna look into it.
for the use. For the applied use.
Okay, but we do need to check the number of units.
Okay,
And I have the same concern as, I can't remember his name, Mr. Grass. I have the same concerns as him with the water, because I have water going through my yard too. Same issues, and at the Conservation Commission, they said it wasn't their problem. I've
well,
been following all these meetings.
okay, and I understand that, and believe me, I do respect that, but again, that's not a sewer issue right now. I'd like to keep these open forums focused on what we discussunderstand. Tonight.
I understand.
If water issues, I could figure out something else and maybe have a separate meeting to hear it, but. I'd like
Well,
to
it just
focus on
seems,
what we talked about tonight.
I know it's off track, but it just seems everybody's passing the buck to everybody
No,
else.
I understand that. Listen, I hear it from both sides. I serve on the zoning commission too, so zoning board.
I'll be there. All right, thank you. That's all I
That's
have.
okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Can I chime in for a little bit? Can you hear me?
Pat, I'll get to you next. Go ahead. Is this Diana, Sean?
Sean,
Okay, Sean.
so to follow up with what Mr. Grass was saying. I live right next to that stream. So at 59 South Douglas. So if you want to take a look at it, I'll be home tomorrow. And I work from home. So you're more than welcome to check it out and go on my property. I don't mind at all. So just to follow up with his statement and concerns.
John, that was 59.
Yeah, because I noticed, I agree with him. That stream is half full right now, and we
Yeah,
still below
that's-
the range.
that's true. Yeah, that stream levels off at both head walls at Union Street. So, I mean, obviously the ramifications of that being blocked up, would be significant to say the least. So
Especially with the rain, and we're having more Sunday.
that's
I actually
correct.
have ducks in my yard.
Yeah.
I have ducks in my backyard.
I'll set up a blind. Thank you. You're up. Matt Ronan.
Thank you.
I was going to ask a question, ladies and gentlemen. If that facility is in such dire condition, all right, and I hear report after report, and this goes to you, Chuck, Mr. Taylor, and I guess the new commissioner, Mr. Natasha. Why don't they stop all building until it's upgraded or fixed? Like you say, you would have to have these builders that come in find it. What do you mean? How would they find I&I? How would they do that?
They do it basically the same way we're doing it. They'd have to contract out a firm that has cameras, smoke testing, and go through everything we're going through. Now, the SSES study that we're going through, I'm going to give you an example. It's townwide. It's costing us $300,000. Now, this study is just going to find it. It's not that $300,000 don't repair it. So what I'm proposing.
When you say find it though, Chuck, sorry to interrupt. When you say find it, what do you mean find it?
Well, you can find it through different ways. I gave you the definition of I&I. If it's leaking in, you can find it with cameras, smoke testing, dye testing. So you find out where the leaks are, you document it with flow meters. And then you go back and you have to repair it. You can repair it with sealing. There's many ways to repair it, but you got to repair it. The problem we've had in the past is that we charge fees that are supposed to be delegated to I&I, but the facility is in such tough shape, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul to keep that facility going. That number is our number one priority. Well, meanwhile, the developers are still coming in. We're not finding the I&I we should to make room for them. And it's caught up. It's caught up to us. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. You can't lie about the numbers. We are over capacity. If you're discharging 2.6 million gallons a day, you're over your permit. You're over capacity. And the only way we can get that additional capacity is to fix all the leaks in those pipes. That's the biggest part of it. But we have to focus on the facility.
But you can't give what you don't have.
Huh? I can't hear you, Pat. Say that again.
Right. You can't give what you don't have.
And that's
you can't give what you don't have.
That's what I just said. We in a regular stretch. We're coming off a wet period now. Wet period is usually your winters right now, and we'll be going into a dry period. We just can't shut them off cold turkey. If we have some capacity, like at 50,000 gallons is really not much, but it is a lot compared to what we have. We can spare that 50,000. But I'm saying once that 50,000 is gone, that's all we can spare right now. After that, we can't give any more unless Rockland or the developers find that 550,000 gallons and fix it to replenish that 50,000 gallons. If we don't replace that 550,000 gallons, there's going to be no more permits. We can't do it. I mean, it is what it is. We have maxed out. But
does town hall know this? Mr. Taylor, this goes to you as well. Does town hall know and agree with this and understand this?
Who?
Mr. Hesh and Mr. Taylor, do they understand it?
I think they understand it. I'll let Dave answer, but I'll answer. I think town hall's heard it. Let's put it this way. I know they've heard it because I've chirped to them enough. I'm sure Dave has.
Mr. Taylor, does town hall understand and know this?
As far as what the I&I replacement that is required by the developers, Patrick?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's so, Chuck's referred to that. I know I've talked about it in the previous meetings, and I know Keith, I know Keith has knowledge in the INI as well. So, I mean, the easiest terms to put it in is if you look at last year when we had the drought, that down at the sewer treatment plant, I think we're a little around 1.5 million gallons per day. And that was during the drought. So that gives you a good level point of where the facility should be. As soon as we get rain, just like Rick and Ed refer to, we had 3 inches of rain. They pull out the Godwin pumps. I mean, you can go up as 5 million gallons a day. And I know they've been over that. That's just infiltration, and that is what the $300,000 is out there is finding right now. So we're going to find all the bad spots in town, or 80% of it, with the study that we're doing now. That has been, where they did the flow isolation calculations and also doing the camera work right now. So when these developers do come in, they will have to replace that to an 11:1 ratio. Being, if it was 1 gallon, they have to put back 11 gallons per that gallon. So, and then, what Chuck brings up is the moratorium, which, I'm all for that. Let us get caught up on the INI so we have a little bit of room. I mean, the facility is old, and if we can get some of that INI out in the field, and I've been seeing it, and I've been taken back by it, to be honest with you. I mean, I see it on the drainage side, and it's like if you put a manhole and you block that manhole and you have all that groundwater going into that manhole, that groundwater is going to that facility. So you're adding all that burden to the facility for Suez, and they have to, that's coming in. That's just too much to be coming in. So there's room out there. So the infrastructure, and Rockland's not the only town. Every town around us is going through the same thing. Infrastructure has been let go for 20 to 30 years. It's just, the stuff under the roads is not pretty. It's not the sexy stuff that people see. They don't care about it until something lets go. And that's just infrastructure. And I think, anybody that's done it for years, and I know Keith has, and then, you've seen it out in the field. It's just been let go for so long, and you know what? It's finally catching up with us, and it's something that's smacking us in the face right now, and we have to go after it. So,
and the thing I was getting at, Pat, is that unfortunately the sewer department, excuse me, people have got to put their foot down. They have got to be able to say, you know what? We can't take you on. And they're going to say, well, I want to put in 100,000 gallons. Well, guess what? You're not. We have 50,000 gallons right now we can play with until we repair what we have, period. We can't do anymore. We're at the breaking point, but we just can't say no right now. It's like you have to wean off. And I'm given in December, and that may change. We may say in December, number one, we don't have the 50,000 gallons, and number two, we're still over our rolling average of 2.5. If we're over the rolling average, no one's getting a permit. At least that's what I'm proposing, and I'm hoping the guys support it. But you cannot give what we don't have, and we don't have it now, period. Yes, there are months we're down around 1.5 million gallons a day, all right? But I'm sorry, the EPA and the sewer operators have to look at your average. And that INI is destroying your average. As Dave said, they've let it go too long. And unfortunately, the plant is so old, they had to take INI money to keep the plant running. What I'm saying now is that if you want it, you're going to find it before you tie up. We're going to keep the plant running. And if we run out of the INI that we've asked the voters for, and we have to use that for repairs, we're not going to replenish it. I mean, I don't know.
Do developers quite get that?
How else to go about it? I'm being as strict as I can.
Do the developers quite understand that?
They're gonna. No, I'm serious. I mean, it's
good.
I'm a little bit different animal. I have no problem telling them no. I mean, it's not just the thing that hurts, to be honest with you, is when you have to say no to some commercial business or industrial. To me, that's the meat and potatoes of your economy and of your town. You know, it's going to be a tough nut, and they're going to be burning us and burning me and burning Danny and Keith in effigy. But I at least know for one, if I think what I've proposed is very sound engineering rationale. And if it goes through, I can guarantee you, I will adhere to it. I mean, that's the number. Unfortunately, that's what an engineer has to look at the numbers, and that's how I've been trained. And the numbers don't lie. That's what it's telling me. We're over capacity. Period. We do not have any more room. I'm sorry.
They're gonna have to follow the science, Chuck. That's it. And then some people don't want to listen. And I agree with you. And I hope everybody else here agrees with you as well. Makes sense. It's called common sense is what it is.
Well,
So for anyone
being
that
practical.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What we're trying to do with this whole thing is, unfortunately, we didn't do it in 2007. But you know what? This is 2021. You've got to start looking at where you're going to be in 2031, 2041. And if we keep going, we're just going to leave them a bigger mess than we have right now. And we've got a mess. And all we can do is try to correct it. And some people are not going to be happy. But the facts are the facts. You cannot give away what you do not have.
I agree. When will you have a decision on that, your proposal?
Well, again, I want to sit down with Dave, Keith, Ed and Rick and Dan and talk it over. I mean, they have a copy of it. And guys, feel free to mark it up. I think, Keith, I sent you a copy. Okay, so mark it up. And if you guys want to have I think that would have to be a public meeting if we discuss it in open forum. I'm not sure. I'll bow to our attorney, Mary. Is that considered, if we discuss that moratorium, is that a public meeting, Mary?
On the moratorium?
Yeah, if we just want to sit down amongst ourselves and talk about it.
You would, if it's a quorum, if you have a quorum of sewer commissioners, you have to post the meeting and it has to be a
Right.
public meeting.
Well, then, guys, all I can ask you to do is take a look at it, mark it up, and send it back to me. And I'd like to schedule our next, I had it down, our next meeting for, I'd like to schedule next meeting for Wednesday, May 19th. The reason being, that's the weekend before Memorial Day. What I'm going to try to do is put out a whole year's worth of meeting dates, so everyone knows up front when they are. And you can do some planning. If you guys come to consensus on a moratorium or have some other ideas other than mine, you want to get them to me, we just need 48 hours to schedule a meeting. But again, I think in all fairness, Keith has got a ton of work to look. I was going to say another wastewater term for work, but no, you got a lot of work ahead here to catch up to. But let's leave it for the 19th. I think that's reasonable. And people out there, residents, you got any ideas? Send them off to me. I mean, nothing is cut in stone here. I mean, I don't have all the answers I'm looking for answers, but I want to be reasonable and fair about it.
May I ask a question?
Sheila, sure.
Sheila Dunphy, 35 South Douglas Street. I'm across from the end of Dyer Street. Conservation, first of all, did not care about our water issues. And did you approve the permit for them? Because we haven't even gone past conservation or planning.
No, they came before us with a tentative plan for their sewer hookup.
I understand. I saw that meeting.
The sewer hookup it meets all our requirements. Right now, we don't have that moratorium in place. So we can't vote.
Permits?
Excuse me?
Do they have any permits?
They don't have a formal permit now. No, I don't know. I know they don't have a sewer. I don't know if they have a water. I don't know if they have planning or it's Concord. I know they didn't come before ZBA yet.
Right. So you've allowed them to proceed even.
No, all we did is we looked at and we gave them the approval for the sewer design. They do not have a hookup.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? If you get any ideas on this open forum part, I don't want to really step on any other Board of Commissions boundary. I just would like to keep it focused on sewer related issues. And yeah, is water going into your cellar, a sewer related issue? Yeah, I guess so. I just wasn't expecting that one, to be honest with you. Well, if that's all said and done, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
I make a motion.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Ed, Rick, thanks. Dave, Keith. Good night.
All right.
Dan, I'll be in touch.
Okay,
Take care, kid.
be good.
Nah, no fun.
I had to go pick up my wife.
I'm gonna go watch Red Sox. Anyone cares, it's 2-0 Boston. Take care.
Have a good day. Be good, Patrick.
Hello? You off? I'm still on the screen. Okay, there we go. Yeah. I'm still on Zoom. Just got a text.